Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org with a video tutorial for the new Boston. Now in the last video, looking at some of the jQuery utilities with regards to functions, we looked at inArray, and this checked whether a particular value was present in an array. In this video we're going to take a look at inserting values into arrays using just the standard JavaScript and not a jQuery, and not the jQuery library. But we're also going to be looking at the each utility, or the each function, and this will loop through elements in an array, and we're going to just display them out onto a area on our page. So the first thing I want to go and do is just modify this form that we used in the last tutorial. If you haven't already seen this tutorial, all we have is an input box where we can type a user's name, and then we have a button that in the last tutorial we used to check if this was in a particular array. Now what we're going to do instead is change this value here just to insert, and we're going to allow the user to enter a name into this text box, and then pop that into an array, or push this into an array, and then we're going to be looping through the results and just displaying them out so they'll get instant feedback. So let's go ahead and change this to insert as well as the value as well. I'm going to go ahead and create just a div content area down here where we can list out these names, and I'm just going to call that names. So we've got util.js, which I've included on my page, and we can start writing out code in here. The first thing I'm going to do, as with the majority of code you'll write, is document.ready, and inside here we'll have a function which we will then just pull down, and inside here is all the code that we're going to use when the document has loaded. Okay, so the first thing we want to go ahead and do is just outline a function that's going to loop through the values in a particular array. So I'm just going to define this function, and we're not going to fill it in just yet. So the function is going to be called display array, and underneath here I want to be able to check whether the insert button has been clicked. So I'm going to go ahead and set up an event handler for our insert button. So we use a ID selector to select insert, and then we say .click, and then inside there we create our function, and we just pull that down. Now just up here, after the function definition and before this event handler, I'm going to go ahead and create an array called names. I'm going to just put 3 values into this, so 1, 2, 3, and the first one just Alex, Billy, and then Dale. So we now have this names array. So what we want to do is when the user clicks insert, we want to retrieve the value. Let's just refresh. We want to retrieve the value from here, put that into an array, and then we're going to use our function to just list everything in the array down here on a line by line basis. So the first thing we want to do inside of our click function is grab the name. So I'm going to create a new variable called name, and again we use an ID selector to select the name text area, and we just take the value from that using val. Okay, so now what we want to do is go ahead and pop that into the array, or push this into the array, sorry. So we use names, which is our array name up here, and we use .push, and .push is just going to take a value or a set of values that we want to put into the array. So we could specify them like this, or we could specify just one element, and that's just going to be name. So the name that's currently that's been entered, once the button has been clicked, that goes into the array, and then we call the display array function. We also want to go ahead and call the display array function just down here, so as soon as the user lands on the page, the array is displayed as well. So now that we've done this, all we've essentially done is created our array with 3 values in to begin with. We're displaying these values initially to the user, and then once they click the insert button, it will take the value from the name input field here, and that will push that into the array, and then it will just re-display the array. So all that we've got left to do now is use the each utility, which is the whole point of this tutorial, to actually display this. Now the first thing we want to go ahead and do is just clear the names div. So I'm just going to say names.text, and then we'll just enter an empty value in there. Now what we want to do is go ahead and loop through all of our results. So at the moment, when I refresh and type in a name, let's just say Ashley, the array now contains the values Alex, Billy, Dale, and Ashley. But obviously we haven't displayed this to the user yet, so we need to use each, and then we fill this in to actually loop through particular results from a specified array. So this is going to take two parameters, and then we have a callback function with two additional parameters, and what we want to do is say names, and that's the name of the array, so we've specified the name of the array, which is names, and then we want our callback function just here. Want to go ahead and just pull that down, and inside of a function we're going to take two parameters, or feedback two parameters, and that's index and value. So index is the position that each element is located at. So for example, Alex is located at 0, Billy at 1, Dale at 2, and then so on. And value will be Alex, Billy, and Dale. So we can also point out where the elements are located. So this would be good for, you know, searching in an array, and then, you know, modifying an array, perhaps taking values out and putting new values in. So it's an extremely, you know, powerful way to hold data, as I'm sure you already know if you've programmed before. So now what I want to do is, for each name, I want to go ahead and append this to the names div. So I'm going to say names.append, and in here we want to append on the value, and then we want to append some text, and then the index. The index. So I'm going to say value, i.e. Alex, Billy, or Dale, or anything else. Oh, in actual fact, no, we don't need to do that. That was from the last tutorial. Sorry, what we want to do is display the value and then a line break. Okay, so got a bit ahead of myself, but yeah, we've got the value and then a line break. So at the moment, when we enter the page, we call this display array function, and what it will do is it will show Alex and then a line break, then Billy, then a line break, and then Dale, and then another line break. So when we add another value in, it will just keep appending to this list. And remember, the function the display array function clears this before it refills the div with this data, just so we don't get duplicate data. So let's go ahead and just refresh. You can see that we've now got Alex, Billy, and Dale in a list, and what we can then do is go ahead and enter a name. So when we click insert, we'll just run through it again. We have the handler here, we grab the value from the text field, we add it to the array, and then we again call the display array function. So that will just display that back out. So when I click insert, you can see that that's just pushed onto the end of the array. So we can go ahead and type in, you know, a variety of names, and they'll just be added to the array. So a somewhat useless application, you know, depending on, you know, you might want to go ahead and use it somewhere else, but a somewhat useless application, but it demonstrates the use of each, and also, you know, sort of like an original JavaScript functionality with regards to pushing a value onto an array. So hopefully you've learned a bit about arrays and also looping through arrays. And as I mentioned before, if you want to go ahead and hold data in the front end in JavaScript variables, and it's lots of data that obviously belong to one category or one you know, group, you can go ahead and use arrays because it's extremely powerful, and jQuery does have some utilities that do deal with arrays. So go ahead to the jQuery documentation, look up utilities, and see what other things you can do with arrays, such as converting, etc. So yeah, that's the each utility in jQuery.